Happy Saturday, Risers. We hope you are having a phenomenal weekend. Saagar and I are back with some of our favorite moments from the week. This week, journalist and author Matt Taibbi joined us to talk about the media's contributing role to what happened this week at the Capitol on Wednesday, those horrific riots, and why this country has really reached this horrible breaking point.
After the advent of cable and the internet, companies like Fox realized that that was no longer a tenable strategy. What they would instead do was pick a demographic and try to dominate it. And the way you do that is by feeding it news that you know is going to reinforce its internal prejudices or its belief systems. They picked older, conservative, rural and suburban, primarily white audiences who had a lot of disposable income, and it was very profitable. But now basically everybody uses that same model for making money, and they just pick different demographics and give them the news that they know they want to hear, and that's very dangerous.
Yeah, he's exactly right.
I think we have a lot of hard questions to ask in the weeks to come about, we know the proximate causes. We know Trump, we know Hawley, we know Cruz, we know Giuliani, we know all the people that fed into lying to the American people and fomenting what happened this week. But we got to do some deeper questions about, how do we get to this place anywhere where millions upon millions of Americans could believe this pack of lies and see themselves as patriots by committing these outrageous acts?
Yeah, it's downstream from media, it's downstream from Washington, it's downstream from just how much social isolation that is currently happening, along with no federal bailouts whatsoever for actual average American people. And that applies, I think, to riots that have happened throughout the country for the last year on both sides. And that's not an excuse, but it is, sociologically, we know what happens in different conditions that are set up by our ruling class and elites, and that's basically, I think, what happened here.
Indeed.
All right, so Glenn Greenwald, he's co-founder of The Intercept. He joined us this week to offer his view on Facebook and Twitter suspending Trump's account. And since the recording of that segment, actually, Facebook banned Trump, his account, for the rest of his term as president. Let's take a listen to Glenn's warnings about censorship.
If people are encouraging others to believe any number of false things that might lead to violence, or if people are explicitly advocating violence, obviously that kind of speech is dangerous. Speech can be dangerous. This is not the first time when that's been the case. The problem is you have to not only look at the dangers from that speech in question, but also the dangers that come from the solution to the speech. And so if in this moment when we're really all upset and disturbed by what President Trump said and did and the outcome of it, which all decent people are, to then turn around and say, okay, the solution is that we're going to empower tech companies, Silicon Valley companies, or even the government to start increasing their censorship powers in the name of preventing this kind of speech from fueling right-wing extremism. If we're only looking at one side of the equation, hey, I think it's better that Trump not be heard from 12 hours. It's very easy to reach that conclusion. You have to look at the other side of the equation, though, as well, the dangers of the solution that you're advocating to the problem.
Glenn's broader point, which I think is a really important one, is when you have these moments that are incredibly emotionally fraught, we oftentimes have the understandable instinct to go too far in ways that set up horrible precedents and problems for us for the long term, with, of course, the Iraq War and the Patriot Act and the, authorization for the use of military force has now been used to justify wars all over the world. So he's saying we got to take a step back, put our emotions aside, and really think about what the consequences of this are for the future.
I think he's absolutely right. And, I fear about what's happening right now, and he's right, is when people feel like something is not morally justified, but more aligns with an outcome that they want, that's actually the most dangerous time that people can cynically use that. So
well, especially when people are afraid.
Yes.
People feel justifiably afraid right now.
He should be afraid.
Yeah,
it's true.
And he's out there fomenting, and inciting, making everything worse. Like I said multiple times, I feel conflicted on this. This is the first time where I'm I can see the justification for why they took these tweets down and on Facebook and suspended his account, but I think it's a really complicated issue, and Glenn lays it out really well. All right. Finally, Greg Bluestein, political reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He joined us on Tuesday, that feels like a lifetime ago, to discuss the accuracy of the polls in the Georgia Senate races. Now, since the filming of this, Democrats Jon Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock, they both won those elections insanely, giving the Democratic Party a majority in the Senate.
Yeah, here is Greg predicting Dems had a chance at winning both of those races. Let's take a listen.
Democrats are energized. They didn't have to worry about a president who's been sending conflicting messages to their base. They've got Joe Biden, who's basically saying, vote for these two and you'll get $2,000 stimulus checks and you'll get my agenda. You'll get more public health funding to contain the coronavirus. You'll get an expansion of healthcare access and voting rights.
I mean, everything had to go right for Democrats to pull this off, and everything had to go wrong for Republicans. The fact that Democrats pulled both of these off is insane. I mean, the polls also, weirdly, ended up being pretty much exactly
right
on the mark, which is also very unusual. But look, Trump has now cost the Republican Party the House, the presidency, and the United States Senate. So, way to go, guys.
That's right. And you know what? We didn't have enough time to really go through the Georgia results. I think we'll take some time to do that next week.
For
because
sure.
It's a monumental political event, and we should talk more about it.
All right, that does it for us today.
All right, hit the subscribe button. Don't miss any of our videos. Don't forget to like and share as well. Tomorrow, going to be back for another round of #RisingQs. We'll see you all then.
Have a good one, guys.